I pulled into the driveway a little after 11:30 p.m., the crunch of gravel under my tires the only sound in the still night. The corporate event had gone even better than I had hoped. Shook the right hands, avoided drinking too much, and sealed a deal that would fatten the company's bottom line by a few million. My phone buzzed with a message from one of the board members, congratulating me on the win, but I ignored it. The only thing I wanted now was to crawl into bed beside my wife, Megan, and end the night on a quiet note. But something felt off the moment I stepped out of the car. The house was dark, too dark. Normally, Megan would still be awake, curled up on the couch with some crime documentary playing or absent-mindedly scrolling through her phone, waiting for me to get home. But tonight, no glow from the TV, no faint sounds of life. Just silence, heavy and unnatural. Then I noticed the front door was unlocked. That was strange. Megan was always cautious about locking up, especially at night. I hesitated for a second before pushing the door open and stepping inside. The faint scent of lavender candles lingered in the air. Familiar, yet something about it felt out of place. Everything looked normal. Shoes neatly arranged by the door. My coat still hanging where I had left it that morning. Nothing seemed disturbed. Maybe she went to bed early. That would be unusual for her, but not impossible. I loosened my tie, kicked off my shoes, and made my way upstairs. The old wooden steps creaked under my weight, the sound louder than usual in the thick silence. Halfway up, a sliver of light caught my eye. The bedroom door was cracked open, a faint glow spilling into the hallway. My pulse picked up speed, but I could not explain why. My brain offered up logical reasons. Maybe she fell asleep reading. Maybe she left a lamp on. Then I heard it. A soft, muffled sound. Not quite a whisper, not quite a laugh. Just a quiet, breathy noise that made my stomach twist. I reached for the door and pushed it open. And there they were. Megan and him. Ryan, her personal trainer. The guy she had been raving about for months. The one who had supposedly been helping her get back in shape. He was shirtless, wearing those ridiculous compression shorts he probably recommended to all his clients. Megan was tangled in the sheets, her face frozen in shock, her hands clutching at the blanket to cover herself. For a moment, my brain refused to catch up with reality. I expected rage, maybe even devastation, but neither came. Instead, I laughed. A sharp, humorless laugh that felt foreign even to me. Ryan fumbled to grab his shirt, his movements frantic like some guilty teenager caught sneaking out a girl's bedroom. Megan stammered something, but her words barely registered over the sound of my own manic laughter. I laughed because it was ridiculous. I was Jake Morrison, CEO, the guy people respected, the man who had built something out of nothing. And here was my wife of 7 years, in bed with a man whose biggest achievement was teaching bored housewife how to do squats properly. But the laughter died as fast as it had come. Reality hit like a sledgehammer to the chest. My breath caught, and for a split second, I thought I might actually be sick. Without another word, I turned and walked away. Megan called my name, her voice shaking, but I did not stop. My feet carried me down the stairs, through the house, straight to the bar cart in the living room. I poured myself a drink, whiskey neat, and downed it in one go, the burn doing nothing to numb the betrayal clawing at my insides. I grabbed my phone, fingers steady despite the storm raging inside me. A few taps later, Megan's access to our joint accounts was gone. It was not about money. It was about control, about reminding her that everything she had, this life, this comfort, came from me, and I could take it away just as easily. She could go to Ryan's place for all I cared. Hell, they could check into a cheap motel together. But tomorrow? Tomorrow, I wanted answers. Because right now, nothing made sense. And that was the part that was tearing me apart the most. The next morning, I woke up with a headache that felt like someone had taken a sledgehammer to my skull. That was what a half bottle of whiskey and 3 hours of sleep would do to a man. I sat in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying last night like some sick movie I could not turn off. Megan, Ryan, the way her face had twisted, not with guilt, but with fear. That part stuck with me the most. There was a difference between being caught and being ashamed. By 8 o'clock, I was showered, dressed, and sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of black coffee waiting. I knew she would come down eventually. And sure enough, minutes later, I heard soft footsteps on the stairs, hesitant, careful, like she was afraid each step would set off a landmine. Megan stopped in the doorway, wearing that old robe she always threw on during lazy Sundays. Her face was bare, her hair tied back, and for a second, she looked almost fragile. But I was not in the mood to feel sorry for her. She cleared her throat. "Can we talk?" I did not offer her a seat. I let her stand there, shifting awkwardly under my gaze. I took a slow sip of coffee, making her wait, letting the silence stretch between us like a blade. I am sorry," she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I know that does not fix anything, but I need you to know that." I set my mug down with deliberate slowness, the soft clink echoing in the quiet kitchen. "Why him?" My voice was calm, but there was an edge to it, sharp enough to cut. "Of all the people in the world, why a guy whose biggest accomplishment is spotting you during lunges?" She flinched, fingers tightening around the fabric of her robe. "It was not like that." I laughed again, but this time it was cold, humorless. "Then explain it to me, Megan," because from where I was standing, it looked exactly like that. She inhaled sharply, like she was bracing for impact. "It was a mistake." I shook my head. "A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk on the way home. What you did, that was a choice." For the first time since you walked in, she had nothing to say. Good. Let her sit with that. Let her feel what it was like to be the one left speechless. Because I was not the fool in this story. Not anymore. I leaned back against the bench, staring at the screen. Amanda. Of all people, I never expected to hear from her again, let alone now. Our history was complicated, the kind of thing that never really settled, no matter how much time passed. She was the one that got away, or, more accurately, the one I let slip away. Now, here she was, reaching out in the middle of the biggest disaster of my life. She replied almost instantly. "How about this evening? Coffee? Or something stronger?" I smirked despite myself. That was Amanda, always knowing exactly what a situation called for. "Something stronger," I typed back. "Send me a place and time." I sat there for a while longer, letting the weight of everything sink in. Megan's betrayal, the way she had crumbled under pressure this morning, the desperate voicemails I refused to listen to. And now Amanda. Was this a mistake? Maybe. But at this point, what did I really have to lose? By the time I got back home, it was late afternoon. Megan's car was still in the driveway, which meant she was inside, probably waiting, hoping for another conversation, another chance to explain. I wasn't ready for that yet. Instead of going in through the front, I took the side door straight into my office, bypassing the kitchen and living room completely. I had a few emails to check, a couple of messages from my assistant about the deal I had secured last night. Normally, that kind of thing would excite me. Another big win, another step forward. But right now, it all felt meaningless. My phone buzzed. Another message from Megan. "Please just talk to me. I know I messed up, but I need to know if we have a chance to fix this." I stared at the message for a long time, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. But I had no idea what to say. Instead of answering, I locked my phone, grabbed my keys, and headed back out. Amanda had chosen a small whiskey bar downtown, the kind of place that was just dark enough, just quiet enough to feel private without being depressing. When I walked in, she was already there, sitting at a booth near the back, a glass of bourbon in front of her. She looked good. Same piercing blue eyes, same confident smirk. She had always been the type of woman who knew exactly what she wanted and never apologized for it. "Damn," she said as I slid into the seat across from her. "I thought you'd age like a corporate robot, but you still look like the same guy I knew in college. Maybe a little more tired." I huffed a laugh. "Rough couple of days." She nodded, taking a slow sip of her drink. "I heard. I'm sorry, Jake." I ran a hand through my hair. "Yeah, me too." The waitress came by, and I ordered a drink. Amanda studied me while I waited for it to arrive, like she was trying to piece me back together from the guy she used to know. So, she finally said, "Tell me everything." I exhaled, leaning back in the booth. "You really want to hear it?" "Of course," she said without hesitation. "Let's start with this. Do you still love her?" I froze. Out of all the questions she could have asked, I hadn't expected that one. Did I? The logical answer was no. No man in his right mind would still love a woman after what she had done. But love wasn't logical. It wasn't something you could just turn off like a switch. I don't know, I admitted. Amanda raised an eyebrow. That's an answer. I scoffed. Yeah, a pathetic one. She tilted her head, considering me. You know, back in college, I always thought you were too loyal for your own good. Like, even when people didn't deserve it, you'd still find a way to see the best in them. I smirked. That a compliment or an insult? A little of both, she said with a grin. The waitress dropped off my drink, and I took a slow sip, letting the burn settle in my chest. Honestly, I said after a moment, I don't know what the hell I'm supposed to do. She says she wants to fix it, but I don't know if I can ever trust her again. I don't know if I even want to. Amanda tapped her nails against her glass. Well, let me ask you this. If you could snap your fingers and erase what happened, make it so she never cheated, would you? I frowned. I mean, obviously, yeah. Okay. Now, if you could snap your fingers and just move on, completely no pain, no regret, would you do that instead? That was a harder question. Amanda leaned in, her gaze steady. You don't have to answer now. But that's the real choice, Jake. It's not about whether she's sorry. It's about what you want your life to look like moving forward. I took another sip of my drink, her words rattling around in my brain. Maybe that was the real problem. I had no damn idea what I wanted. For the next hour, we talked about everything but Megan. We caught up on life, work, old friends. For the first time in days, I wasn't drowning in my own thoughts. By the time I walked her to her car, the whiskey had settled in just enough to take the edge off, but not enough to cloud my judgment. She turned to face me, keys in hand. So what now? I shrugged. Guess I go home and figure out what the hell comes next. Amanda studied me for a long moment, then nodded. Well, whatever you decide, don't let guilt make the choice for you. I smirked. You always this wise. She grinned. No, just better at pretending I have it all figured out. I watched as she got in her car and drove away, feeling lighter than I had in days. But as I got into my own car, my phone buzzed again. Megan. Jake, please. Just one more chance to talk. I sighed, gripping the steering wheel. One conversation. Then I would decide. I studied her face, searching for the woman I had built a life with. The woman I had trusted. The woman I had fought for, sacrificed for. And now, here we were, sitting in the ruins of something that once felt unbreakable. Tell me the truth, Emily. All of it, I said, my voice quieter than I expected. No excuses, no half-truths. I want to know why. Her fingers tightened around the fabric of her sweater, and for a long moment, I thought she might not answer. But then she took a deep breath, her gaze locked on the wine glass in front of her. I wish I could give you one simple answer, Daniel. But the truth is, I do not even fully understand it myself. Bullshit, I snapped. You do not just wake up one day and decide to throw away your marriage. You made choices, Emily. You knew exactly what you were doing. She winced but did not argue. Instead, she took a shaky breath and tried again. I felt like I was disappearing, she admitted. Like I was just here. Like I had become part of the furniture in our life. We stopped talking, Daniel. You were always busy, always working, and I felt like I was just existing in the background. My jaw clenched. So what? You wanted attention? Validation? You needed someone to make you feel special, so you slept with your damn Pilates instructor? She flinched at the venom in my voice, but did not deny it. It was never supposed to happen, she whispered. It started with small things, conversations, compliments, him noticing me when I felt invisible. And then, before I even realized how far things had gone, I was in too deep. In too deep. I scoffed, shaking my head. That is a pathetic excuse, Emily. You had plenty of opportunities to stop, to pull back, but you did not. Tears spilled down her cheeks, and for the first time, I saw something that almost looked like genuine regret. Almost. I know, she whispered, and I hate myself for it. I swear to you, Daniel, it never meant more than. Do not say it. I cut her off. Do not insult me by telling me it meant nothing, because if that were true, you would not have risked everything for it. She pressed her lips together, swallowing hard. I was selfish, she admitted, and reckless, and I wish I could take it back. But you cannot. My voice was hollow, drained of all emotion. You cannot erase it, Emily. You cannot undo what you have done. Silence stretched between us, thick with the weight of everything left unsaid. She wiped at her tears, sniffling as she finally met my gaze. "Do you still love me?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. That was the question, was it not? The one I had been avoiding since the moment I walked in on her and Nathan. Did I still love her? Could I love her after this? I opened my mouth, but no words came out, and that silence was louder than anything I could have said. Emily let out a shaky breath, as if she already knew the answer I could not bring myself to say. She nodded slowly, as if accepting her fate. "I do not want to lose you," she said. "I will do whatever it takes to fix this." I ran a hand over my face, exhaustion settling deep in my bones. "I do not know if this is something you can fix, Emily. But if it was," she pressed, desperation creeping into her voice. "If there was a way, would you want to try?" I looked at her, really looked at her. The woman who had been my best friend, my partner, my wife. The woman who had shattered me. And for the first time since this nightmare started, I allowed myself to wonder, was there a way back from this? And even if there was, did I want to take it? "I know it sounds ridiculous," she said, "and maybe it is, but I don't know what else to do, Daniel. I don't want this to be the end of us." Her voice cracked slightly, but she pushed through. "I know you don't trust me. I know you probably don't even like me right now. But if there's any part of you that still believes in us, even the smallest piece, I want to fight for that." I exhaled sharply, setting my coffee down with more force than necessary. "You don't get to talk about fighting for this marriage, Emily. You already made your choice. You fought for something else. And now, you want me to sit in a therapist's office and what? Talk about my feelings? Try to find some way to make peace with what you did." She nodded, swallowing hard. "I don't expect you to be okay with this, Daniel. I don't even expect you to forgive me. Not yet. But I'm asking, begging, for a chance to prove that I can be better. That we can be better." I ran a hand down my face, frustration clawing at my chest. This was the part one hated the most. She sounded sincere. She looked wrecked, like someone who knew they had burned their entire life to the ground and was desperate to salvage whatever was left. But sincerity didn't erase what she had done. Regret didn't undo betrayal. "I'll think about it," I muttered finally. A flicker of hope crossed her face. "Okay, that's all I can ask for." I stood up, needing to put some distance between us before I said something I would regret. "I'm going for a drive." "Where?" she asked hesitantly. I shrugged, grabbing my keys. "I don't know." She didn't try to stop me. I left before I could change my mind. The road stretched out in front of me, empty and quiet. I drove without a destination, my mind stuck in an endless loop of what-ifs and maybes. What if I had been home more? What if I had noticed the signs earlier? What if I had been a different kind of husband? But then a darker thought settled in. What if none of that would have mattered? What if Emily had always been capable of this, and I'd just been too blind to see it? I pulled into the parking lot of an old diner we used to go to when we were first dating. Back then, we'd sit in a booth by the window, splitting milkshakes and talking about the future. It felt like a lifetime ago. I ordered a coffee and stared at my phone, debating whether to text Amanda. She had checked in again earlier. A simple, "Hope you're doing okay." I hadn't responded. Not because I didn't want to, but because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. Reaching out to an ex right now wasn't the smartest move, but she was the only person who felt neutral. Someone who wasn't tied to this mess. Someone who wasn't waiting for me to decide whether I was going to stay or leave. Before I could overthink it, I typed a quick reply. "Still a mess, but thanks." A minute later, my phone buzzed. "Want to talk?" No pressure. I hesitated, then typed back. "Maybe later." I wasn't ready yet. For Amanda. For Emily. For any of it. I just needed a damn break. When I finally returned home, Emily was sitting on the couch, the TV playing some mindless show she wasn't really watching. She looked up as I walked in, her expression cautious. "You okay?" she asked softly. I let out a humorless chuckle. "No, not even close." She nodded like she expected that answer. "Did you think about what I said?" "Yeah." And I sighed, leaning against the wall. "I'll go to counseling, but not because I believe it's going to fix anything. I'll go because I need to know, once and for all, if there's anything left worth saving." Her eyes filled with fresh tears, but she held them back. "That's all I ask. I wasn't doing this for her. I was doing this for me. Because if I was going to walk away from my marriage, I needed to be damn sure there was nothing left to salvage. And if there was, I needed to figure out if I even wanted to. I pushed the door open, my mind already running through possibilities. The house was quiet, but there was an energy in the air, the kind that told me someone was waiting. And then, as I stepped into the living room, I saw him. Sitting calmly on the couch, legs crossed like he had all the time in the world, was my father. I hadn't spoken to him in years. "Daniel," he said, his voice as steady as ever. "It's been a while." I clenched my jaw, suddenly feeling like I was 17 again, standing in this same room after one of his long absences, waiting for whatever excuse he had prepared that time. "What are you doing here?" He glanced around the house, nodding slightly as if approving of what I had built. "Heard about what happened. Figured it was time we talked." I let out a bitter laugh. "So what? You disappear for years and show up now because my wife cheated on me? What? Did you think I needed fatherly advice?" His expression didn't change. He just tilted his head slightly, studying me. "You look exhausted," he said, "like a man who's trying to hold on to something that's already gone." I exhaled sharply, rubbing a hand down my face. "You don't know anything about my life." He gestured to the chair across from him. "Then sit. Tell me." I hesitated. Every instinct told me to throw him out, to slam the door on whatever this was. But another part of me, the part that was too damn tired to fight anymore, sat down. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The silence stretched between us, thick with all the things we had never said. Then he sighed. "You know, your mother always said you got my stubbornness." I scoffed. "That's a compliment." He smirked. "Depends on how you use it." I shook my head, leaning back. "What do you want, Dad?" He folded his hands in his lap. "I want to know what you're going to do." "About Emily." I stared at him, caught off guard. "What does it matter to you?" "Because I've been where you are," he said simply. "And I made the wrong choice." I frowned, my mind racing. My parents' divorce had never been something we talked about in depth. My mother had given me her version of the story, and I had believed it. But now, sitting across from him, I wasn't so sure I knew everything. He must have seen the doubt in my eyes, because he continued. "Your mother wasn't perfect, Daniel. Neither was I. But when things went wrong, I let my pride decide for me. I walked away because it was easier than dealing with the pain. And I regret it every single day." I swallowed hard, my throat dry. "So you think I should stay? Just forgive her and pretend this never happened?" He shook his head. "No, I think you should make damn sure you're doing what you really want, not what your anger wants." I let his words settle in. Was that what I was doing? Letting my anger take the wheel? Or was I actually ready to let go? After a long pause, I sighed. "I don't know if I can ever trust her again." "That's fair," he admitted. "Trust is harder to rebuild than love." Emily chose that moment to step into the room, stopping in her tracks when she saw my father. Her eyes flicked between us, unsure. "I should go," he said, standing up. "But, Daniel, whatever choice you make sure it's yours." With that, he walked past Emily, giving her a brief nod before stepping outside. Emily turned to me, hesitant. "What was that about?" I ran a hand through my hair, letting out a deep breath. "Nothing. Just someone reminding me that I have a choice." She took a cautious step forward. "And do you?" I looked at her, really looked at her. This woman, the one I had built a life with, the one I had loved, the one who had shattered everything, was standing there, waiting for me to decide our future. I had the power now, and for the first time since that night, I finally knew what I wanted. I stood up, my decision clear. "Pack your bags, Emily," I said, my voice steady. "We're done." She minimized the screen so fast I almost missed it, but not fast enough. My eyes caught a glimpse of an email thread, a name that made my stomach tighten. Nathan. I stepped closer, my voice dangerously low. "Are you kidding me, Emily?" She shook her head frantically, her hands gripping the edge of the desk like it was the only thing keeping her upright. "It's not what you think." "Then explain it," I said, crossing my arms. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're still talking to the man who ruined our marriage." Her lips parted, but no words came out. The silence was damning. I reached for the mouse, but she grabbed my hand. "Daniel, please." I yanked away from her grip and clicked the email open. There it was. A short message from Nathan, sent just an hour ago. "Nathan, I just wanted to check on you. I know this isn't easy." And her reply, sitting in the draft folder, unsent but staring me right in the face. Emily, I don't know how to do this. I feel like I'm losing him for good. I let out a slow breath, forcing myself to stay calm. So after everything, after you swore to me it was over, you're still confiding in him? Tears filled her eyes, and she shook her head. I didn't send it, but you wanted to? I shot back. You sat here, in the middle of the night, writing to the man who helped you destroy us. That's not just a mistake, Emily. That's a choice. She broke then, sobbing into her hands. I don't know what to do, Daniel. I don't know how to fix this. I ran a hand through my hair, laughing bitterly. You don't fix a betrayal like this by running back to the person you betrayed me with. You fix it by proving to me, every damn day, that I'm the one you choose. And right now, that doesn't look like what you're doing. She wiped her face, her expression raw. I do choose you. Then why does it feel like I'm the only one fighting for this? I asked, shaking my head. Why do I feel like I'm the one hanging onto something that's already dead? She took a step closer, hesitated, then whispered, Do you still love me? The question hit harder than I expected. There was a time when the answer would have been easy, automatic. But now, I wasn't sure. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I reached past her, shutting off the computer screen. I don't know, I admitted, and that should tell you everything. Her face crumpled, but I didn't wait for her to respond. I turned and walked back upstairs, leaving her standing in the dim glow of the screen. I lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling, knowing the inevitable truth. Some things, no matter how much you want to fix them, are already too broken. Over the next few weeks, the house felt different. Not quite whole, but no longer shattered. Emily kept her promise about transparency, sharing her thoughts and feelings in a way she never had before. At first, it felt forced, almost rehearsed, but eventually, it became natural. I still kept my guard up, but I started noticing the little things. The way she hesitated before touching me, unsure if I would pull away. The way she watched my face for any sign of lingering resentment. The way she fought for us, even when I wasn't sure if I still wanted her to. The nights were the hardest. Sleeping beside her felt foreign, like lying next to a stranger who just happened to wear my wife's face. I stayed on my side of the bed, and she respected the distance. Some nights, I caught her crying softly into her pillow, thinking I couldn't hear. Other nights, she would whisper, "Good night, Daniel," even if I didn't respond. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was something. One evening, I came home to find her in the kitchen, her back turned as she stirred something on the stove. The scent of garlic and herbs filled the air. "You're cooking?" I asked, surprised. It had been a while since she made anything from scratch. She glanced over her shoulder, giving me a small smile. "I thought I'd try. You always liked my lasagna." It was true. It was one of the first meals she ever made for me when we were dating. The memory of her standing in my tiny apartment, covered in flour and laughing at her own mistakes, felt like it belonged to another lifetime. I sat at the table, watching her move around the kitchen. "Why now?" I asked. She hesitated before answering. "Because I want to remind you of who we used to be." The words hung between us, heavy with meaning. I wasn't sure if I could ever see us the same way again, but I appreciated the effort. Dinner was quiet, but not uncomfortable. We talked about work, about her plans to switch to a different gym to avoid any lingering connection to Nathan. She was actively cutting ties, proving that she was willing to do whatever it took to rebuild what she had broken. After dinner, as we cleared the table, she reached for my hand. It was a small gesture, hesitant and unsure. I didn't pull away this time. Later that night, as we lay in bed, she whispered, "Do you think we'll ever be okay again?" I turned to look at her, searching for the right words. "I don't know," I admitted, "but I think we have a chance." A tear slid down her cheek, but this time it wasn't from sadness. It was from hope. And maybe, just maybe, hope was enough.